Here's the hourly price chart for GameStop Corporation, stock ticker GME. Okay, so we're seeing some very interesting price movements here to start the trading day and the trading week. We're seeing new highs, at least new near-term highs. And in my view, this is very significant because I think that the stock market as a whole is really trading at kind of an inflection point right now. We're seeing some fairly major declines in some very important stocks. For example, Meta Platforms, the Facebook parent company, the stock has seen major selling pressure since the end of last week. Similar declines are starting to occur with Nvidia. But then at the same time, Apple started the trading session today to gap to new all-time highs. So what I'm saying here is I think that there's really a mixed trading picture that is starting to develop in the market, and I think that we're going to start to see that more and more as the summer goes on. I don't think this is going to be just as simple as there's an up day in the market, so everything's trading higher, or a down day in the market and everything's trading lower. I don't think it's going to be that easy. I think that we're going to start to see some winners and losers here when we're looking at specific stocks. So for this reason, this price movement higher, we are currently looking at a recent red candle here. We are starting to get a bit of a pullback here, but for the most part, we have broken to new highs. The prior highs that I was watching for this stock, GameStop, was these prior highs came in at roughly the 2650 to 2670 level. And as we can see here, we are now seeing decisive breaks above that level. And we're moving higher here to start the week. So this is kind of setting a positive tone here for the rest of the trading week. And it does kind of brighten the outlook for how things could develop going forward here. So, the first thing that we need to look at really is this break of resistance, prior resistance, which came at 2690. This is the high that would have posted during Friday's trading session. So I do think that it's interesting here that we are I shouldn't say we're gapping higher, but we're breaking these levels to the top side. And this really is starting to put that $30 price level back into focus. For the most part, the way that I've been looking at this is, asking a kind of a key question here. If you were a short seller, where would you start to establish your positions? Because I think that it's starting to become harder and harder to identify specific price levels to do that. Currently, we can kind of point to these prior highs, which just kind of oscillated right around the $30 mark. If we're looking back, this would be the middle of June, roughly June 14th here. We can see that there was a price high that posted just below the $30 level. That would be back here. So the price high here came in at, I believe it's 29. Yeah, it's 29.93. So just south of the $30 mark. And as we can see here, this really resulted in some fairly substantial losses for the stock. This is a price decline all the way down into the lower 20s. I mean, we're looking at like 23.50 at that point as a potential price failure. So I don't really like to point to these psychological numbers very much. These kind of round numbers, $30, $50, $100, and things like that. But if we go back to this June 14th trading period, it does look like this is one area where short sellers were kind of establishing positions in the past and possibly trying to defend that $30 level. So we're not quite there yet. We're still trading at 26.76 at the moment. But for the most part, there are a lot of positive signals here in this chart that should be understood. In particular, the first thing that we can kind of point to here is the failed sort of downtrend attempt that occurred. This would have started on June 27th when we saw price highs of 25.92. So here we were kind of struggling around the $25 mark. And it does look like, there were some significant price moves lower. There was a price gap here. We do see that there was a price gap. We'll draw an arrow here. It'll be this area here. And there was a price gap here, which was fairly significant. I mean, we did drop from 24.30 all the way down. I mean, this really started some negative momentum here into these lower 30s, $22.30, I should say. So, there was a fairly significant decline here in percentage terms. I mean, that's well over 10% in a very short period of time. So, this did sort of generate some downside momentum. But what we have to note here is the fact that this didn't last for very long. This downtrend was broken very quickly, as we can see here in the relative strength index. So, the purple line here is the relative strength index, and then this white line would be the trend activity that would signify bearish momentum or negative momentum. This didn't last very long. We saw a fairly quick reversal point here. If you go back to prior videos, you can see why that was. It was really there were a few factors here. We needed to fill this price gap to the top side. There were a lot of orders here that were skipped over. And then once those orders were eventually filled, we did start to see price move back into the upper direction. And then this is where the positive momentum for the stock really started to develop. So that would be this white trend line here. And it has continued for quite a while. So we can just kind of compare here the differences between the downtrend activity and the uptrend activity. I mean, you can see that the uptrend is much, much longer just in size and in time. And then this downtrend broke fairly quickly. So overall, you should just sort of be thinking about what that actually means for the stock. I mean, short positions aren't really sustaining themselves for a very long period of time. We do have some room here to still extend to the top side. We haven't really reached this 29.90 level. I think that this probably is where we could start to see some emerging short seller activity. And it is going to be important to watch and see how prices react in that area. But overall, we have the positive indicator momentum reading here. And then we also have the fact that these moving averages are really they're really giving a few signals that are positive in nature. So, the first thing we can point to is this yellow line here, which is the 20-hour exponential moving average. And it has broken above all of these other exponential moving averages. This is forcing the exponential moving average cluster to start trending in the positive direction. So going forward, you would expect to start to see support levels develop at near these zones and at higher and higher levels. So this essentially means that short sellers have to continue taking a step back here, and sort of reposition themselves at higher levels. So, this is the type of activity that you need to watch for if you're actually expecting a short squeeze. Okay, it's not any of this other random nonsense that you see from other YouTubers where, they're talking about like this phase of the moon occurred on this day and then AMC, had a major short squeeze or something like that. I mean, this is just random nonsense, which doesn't mean anything. You have to look at the actual price movements here, and you have to try to figure out where the short sell activity most likely rests. There was another video recently that connected, a decline in Bitcoin to the short squeeze in AMC. I mean, it was just complete nonsense. Don't listen to any of that stuff. It means absolutely nothing. So, the current trend movement here does continue to look positive, even while other stocks, such as Nvidia, for example, or Meta Platforms, are really falling to the floor. And this does suggest that GameStop might even be one of the safer stocks at the moment, which is kind of hard to believe. So here's the current market analysis for GameStop Corporation, stock ticker GME.